So, thank you, Luke. Brilliant talk. The message, this, not this. Curlews, not industrial wind turbines. Okay, hydrology and peat is a topic very dear to RWE's heart, it would appear. I'm not going to dwell too much on peatland. It's a huge carbon sink. They will mitigate and try to get around the peat. They've already done some of that in terms of where the turbines are now to be located. They dropped the project from 13 down to 9 turbines. That eliminates quite a lot of the peatland that they would have built on. Fair play for that. However, the next part is hydrology. And the hydrology up there means the water movement, and in particular water movement through the ground. Now, how many of you have got private water supplies, borehole supplies? Okay, please pay attention. Because in their survey, they say, yes, we've done this, we've looked at the flood risk, we've looked at the risk to bedrock and soils and peat, but they downplay the importance of the aquifers that lie underneath the mountain. And by aquifers, we mean like a sponge made of rock. Water will flow through it and it will hold water underground. So when you're digging a borehole for a well, the aquifer is what you're actually digging down to get to the water. So, first slide on there. Don't try and pay too much attention to this one because it is visually a mess. But this is the surface drainage and the water courses up on the mountain. And what you can see, the red framework is the site boundary for RWE's project, and the red dots are the turbine sites themselves. And you'll notice, obviously, they're on high ground. They want to catch the wind. Well, which way does water flow? From high ground to lower ground. So that water runs down into the water courses. This map is the aquifer. Now this is the one they refer to. This is the secondary aquifer. And they more or less dismiss it as saying, oh, it's secondary. It's not important. I know. Well, look. Those are the wind turbines. You can see the white things there. The yellow splodges are the secondary aquifer. The green is a bit of wetland, basically. But you can see that most of those turbines are built above the aquifers. So any pollution will go straight into the groundwater. And they do leak. They leak frequently. They have a lot of oil on board, a lot of hydraulic fluid, and you'll see plenty of photographs of the internet of a wind turbine with oil dripping down the blades and down the tower. So where's that going to end up? Well, the red splodge here is the primary aquifer. So all your boreholes depend on that red splodge there. And as you can see, this is gaerwen. So these are the yellow splodges we were looking at before. They all connect. And they all connect into the River Dee. Now the River Dee is in itself a triple SI. It's the most protected river in the UK. How can they possibly let this happen? It's just unthinkable, to be honest. I've been fortunate enough to live here 9 years now, and I'm only just starting to come to terms with what's actually here around and some of the cultural heritage. So, several studies and assessments. So here we are with RWE's own words. The site has been designed in such a way to avoid any physical impacts on these features. Now look at what's underneath. Again, RWE's own words, buried in the depths of their archaeology report. Construction of the proposed development will result in direct physical impacts to 18 non-designated historic assets. The removal of 6 clearance cairns will be required to enable the tracks to be built, basically, and the turbines to be built. Now, those clearance cairns, they'll dismiss that some of those are modern, yes, but some of them go back to the Bronze Age. And RWE and their archaeologists, they don't know which is which. So it's not going to be possible to mitigate. In the black there on the screen, you can see what part of the environmental impact statement that comes from, if you care to check it out. Other cultural heritage, I'm sure you're familiar with this stone circle above the village. Well, that will overlook the site. So how many people are going to go up there to look at that stone circle with 180-metre wind turbines in the background? Not many, I venture. Okay, in amongst it all, there's 185 historic assets. There's quite a few special landscape areas, and in particular, listed properties. We're very rich in this area for Grade 2 listed properties. And they should not be building this sort of development near those. I've been asked to talk about community benefit funding. Now, this is very, very divisive, and I apologise if I'm going to upset anybody here. You all think the community is going to get money if this wind turbine goes ahead, this wind farm goes ahead. You probably won't, and I'll explain why. RWE are very keen to tell us they've invested £15 million into community packages. Okay, yeah, fine. The fund, Clocanog Forest is already providing, yep, no doubt there. And if you're a business or a charity, you can apply to that fund. You know, you can already apply to the Clocanog Forest Fund here, but only if you're a business or a charity. The people it's actually going to impact, the properties affected by it, the individuals, the families, no, sorry, nothing for you. How much exactly? Well, we've asked RWE. I can tell you now, it's likely less than 5% of the profit they will make from this wind farm, should it go ahead. These are the questions we asked RWE directly, and these are their answers directly. How much per megawatt hour? Because that's how the Community Benefit Fund is rated. So many £1,000 per megawatt hour. Will be confirmed post-consent. Yeah, okay. Share offer price. They're talking about share offers. We'll come on that to the next slide. No answer. Expected yield on shares. No answer. Okay, those two may not be RWE's bag, if you like. Again, we'll come on to that later. Expected total project cost. Not at liberty to disclose this information. Okay, they're not going to tell us how much it's going to cost. They're not going to tell us how much it's going to cost to operate and maintain either. They're not going to tell us how much profit it's going to make. So how can you make an informed decision when you don't have the information? And more to the point, how can you have faith in a company that will not provide that very basic information? So,
I thought I was doing that, but I'd just like to, the
Yep.
Beverley sisters. We've been talking about the specifics of what you will and you won't get from the benefit funds. Fundamentally, this is an act of theft on their part. They have taken from us, without our consent, that which we value. So all these financial, we're in fact buying our own assets back. And I think that's the fundamental problem here is benefit fund is it's a disbenefit fund because the amount of money involved is not going to. You touched on a couple of people have touched on the tourist industry. That figure has been much understated, and although we're going to do a proper survey, it's millions, not a million, to this valley. Assume it's 2.5 million, just for the sake of argument. 10% loss, and as Martin said earlier, the tourist board do not promote tourism for turbines. We are going to lose maybe £250,000 if there's a 10% drop, and that's a conservative. All you holiday home and hospitality owners here in the room must surely feel that a drop at least 10% if these things overshadow you are going to be felt. So you've got figures that completely dominate. It's not a benefit fund, it's a disbenefit fund. And I call it an act of faith because it was taken from us without our consent. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Andrew. No problem. Community share offer. They want us to buy shares in what we don't want. I mean, you couldn't write it, could you, really? Anyway, they're working in partnership with Community Energy Wales to develop a community ownership model. The reason is because Julie James, who's the planning minister, thinks that if some people in Wales buy into this, somehow it's acceptable to those of us that live here and have to suffer the consequences. Well, we can tell her just how acceptable it is. So we went to Community Energy Wales and we asked them, what are these shares going to cost? What will the yield be? Guess what? No answer. In 10 days, no answer. With an email reminder, still no answer. Jobs. RWE tell us there'll be thousands of green jobs, hundreds of green jobs for locals. Rubbish. This much is true. We employ over 350 people with offices in Baglan, Llandarcy, Dalgareth, Port of Mostyn, and on site at our power stations. Okay, 350 people across Wales. It's not a huge amount, is it? RWE's wind turbine apprenticeship hub is based in North Wales and so far trained up over 40 apprentices. Wonderful, marvellous. Given that the industry is looking to replace people dangling on ropes with robots and drones for inspection, what job prospects have these people got exactly? Not a lot. But let me tell you this, I've asked RWE specifically, and it took several times to get a straight answer, how many full-time jobs at Clocanog Forest, their flagship onshore wind farm? Answer, 0, none. There is nobody working there full-time. What they're proposing here would have a maximum of 30 contractors doing the groundwork and mainly travelling from Wrexham. So not local people at all, really. So 30, that's not hundreds of green jobs. Okay, this is where I get into the engineering bit. I love this bit. I hope you're going to take in. It's a lot of numbers crunching. 9 turbines, 7 are 180 metres tall, 2 of them 200 metre tall. The reason is they need to soak up the bumps in the ground. The truth of the matter is the hubs will probably all sit at the same height as we look at them. But how big is that? You've seen the Olympics, Paris, the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower is 300 metres tall. So you're looking at 2/3 the height of the Eiffel Tower. There's a 200 metre turbine there, double the height of the London Eye, for those people who've seen the London Eye. An aerial view of what may be coming, which we sincerely hope it's not. What I've done there is I've taken their site plan and overlaid it onto the landscape. It is absolutely pinpoint accuracy. For those that may know Google Earth, it's Google Earth technology, basically. But what we have, I'm going to try and keep this microphone and show you this at the same time. These are the turbines. They will have a crane pad, that's hardcore, earthworks, trackways. Now those trackways are something like 16 metres wide, and they will be carved into the hillside because these cranes and lorries, they can't get up a big gradient. They need a very, very gentle slope. So it's not going to be quite as flat as it's shown here. This is the substation in the middle, the blue dot, the blue square. That's a substation and battery facility, which I know Kev will talk to you about later.
Not much later.
You've got, well, don't blame me.
No,
I've only just started. You've got borrow pits. Borrow pit, open cast mine, blown apart with explosives to get the rock they need to make all these crane pads and trackways, and to make the concrete for the bases, which we'll come to in a minute. What you can't see here is, just there, is the construction compound. So they'll have lay-down areas for the various components, office building, that sort of thing. So, a few notes about construction and traffic and what they say. 92 additional HGV movements per day. That's 36% up on what the A494 leading to the site entrance currently sees. The site entrance is Hengyer Gate, by the way. For those who don't know, it's directly opposite my house. Come out of Glanravon, past the Texaco, heading towards Bala. It's the second farm gate on the left-hand side, just before the dangerous bends start. So, we're looking at a possibility. Now, I sit there and I watch this all the time. When an HGV tries to get in and out of that gate, you've got people getting on the throttle, coming out of the 40-mile-an-hour zones or out of the bends from the other direction. There is almost a road traffic accident in the making. So that's 16 potential accidents per hour. Whoa, this is going to be carnage. A total of 11,282 HGV movements, plus 10,394 cars and light goods, vans basically. That's throughout the lifetime of the project. Plus what they call AIL convoys. Now these are like the blades, the tower sections. They can't split them up. They are massive. I'll show you later. So what I can tell you is that RWE's accident data in their assessment is wrong. It's 2 years out of date. And since then, there's been 5 serious crashes on that stretch of road alone, including 1 fatality. It's the wrong place to put a junction for HGVs to be turning in and out. Those of us that live alongside the A494 are deemed insignificant in the report, because there's only a couple of us. So we're insignificant. Well, I take great exception to that. So what are we faced with? Well, when there is a delay, like one of these great big lorries bowling up to get to the site, or trying to turn into the site, other drivers are going to get impatient and they're going to rat run the Glanravon lane, possibly all the way down to Bethel. Some of that lane is single track. You can't pass there. It's going to be chaos and it's going to be a danger for anybody else. But this is an artery. This A494, farmers need it for market. We all rely on that road and they're going to block it regularly because when the AIL convoys come, they come with a police escort. You probably saw this, 3 years ago, Clerkenwell Forest turbine blades coming through Corwin. Let me tell you, those blades are 2/3 the size of these. These are monsters. Here's a blade. So we're going to have 27 of those. Road closed, police escort, everything grinds to a halt. The other option that they might try is what's called a blade lifter. So it could be 27 of these instead. This one's going through Howick in Scotland, where they created 6 months of traffic chaos. I've got friends that live there. They were experiencing this every day the weather allowed them, because if there's a puff of wind, these things can topple over. So they build it all up and they say, oh, no, we can't do it. It's too windy today. Then they try and do it the next day or whenever the wind drops. 45 of these tower sections, plus the nacelles and the hubs. Now, they're great big lorries, low loaders in themselves. I put this picture back in. I know you don't like this one, Andrew, but I want to make this clear. 11,282 of these going down that road and turning into that gateway. So they will leave behind a legacy. These environmental companies are great about legacy. What is their legacy? The volume of concrete, 11,380 cubic metres. Now, cubic metres may not mean a lot to many of you. Let me tell you that each turbine base is 3,000 metric tonnes. There's not much difference between a metric tonne and an old-fashioned imperial tonne. So 3,000, nearly 3,200 tonnes of concrete. Eh? Yeah. I've got them, don't worry, we'll get to them. The important thing is these will never be removed. And I'll show you later why that is. What these will do is change the drainage that I showed you up there. It'll change very dramatically. So we may get flooding down in the lower levels. Nobody knows. Okay, concrete. This is actually from Viking Shetland site. These are the construction people's photographs. They're proud of what they've done. Here they're pouring concrete, and you can see the amount of steel reinforcing bar underneath that concrete. That's what's left when they're finished the pour, and they might skim that much off when they decommission. Decommissioning is in 35 years, and they say they've no idea what they'll do. Frankly, they don't know what will be there, they don't know how they're going to handle it, so they can't really make a prediction. But on every wind farm site in Wales, the decommissioning is only to skim the top part off. That amount of concrete and steel will stay in the ground forever. Wrong. Absolutely wrong, in my opinion. Okay, wind turbines. Now, they're supposed to beat emissions. It's supposed to be clean, green energy. But they do have emissions, and they have emissions that they're lying to us about. And I use that term guardedly, lying. Okay? The noise regulation is made up by the wind farm industry. Our Welsh Government have lapped that up and adopted it. And basically, it's a consenting system, so that here's a limit that we know we can meet, and because we can meet it, you must give us consent. Doesn't seem right to me. But not included in the environmental impact statement are some other emissions. Infrasound. Infrasound is very, very low frequency noise, and it's not good for us. There's more medical studies coming through almost by the month of the effects of infrasound. Cumulative seismic impact. Wind turbines shake, that vibration goes into the ground, and it joins up with the vibrations from the turbines next to it. Across a bigger landscape, it joins up with the vibrations from other wind farms. What's that going to do down South Wales, where you've got coal tips? Remember Aberfan? Well, in my opinion, they could be heading for another. Again, it's putting that infrasound through the ground. We sense it, we don't understand it, it causes us a lot of stress. And stress leads to health problems. Toxins, PFAS. Been in the news recently, shellfish. shellfish with fiberglass shards in them. Well, that can't be right. What's in that fiberglass? PFAS. Similar thing to what's in Teflon. Again, Teflon, the DuPont company, been in the news recently, huge fines in the United States. This is one of the most toxic substances around. It includes bisphenol A, you may have heard of. Anyway, the fact that these are scoped out, so when they do this environmental impact statement, they start off the project, they go to PEDU, Planning and Environment Department Wales, and they ask, what do we need to put in the environmental impact statement? And they decide, this is scoped in, this is scoped out. These things on the screen here are scoped out deliberately so that they can build turbines. Anyway, the recent Supreme Court case, Finch versus Surrey County Council, says that you have to consider all the emissions. That's UK law and it's European law. So, were this to go ahead, we think we have very good grounds for what's called judicial review, in taking them to court, basically. Blade erosion. Well, this is a wind turbine blade. Now, this isn't my picture. This comes from a company that makes an armoured leading edge to stop this from happening. But all of that material contains PFAS, bisphenol A. The armour that they use is a thermoplastic. So, again, it creates more bisphenol A, more PFAS. If it breaks, the wind turbine brake snaps. How many, you may have seen the news from the United States, one broke off the coast and the famous tourist beaches of Nantucket closed because there's big lumps of fiberglass shards and the foam that they use, which is also toxic, washing up on the beaches. And they're saying to people, don't go picking that up, it'll hurt you. But that's going to go onto our land, into our animals, and into our drinking water. So, not good. They talk about an operational life of 35 years, but actually, we know how they achieve that, and it's kind of an extended warranty from Siemens Gamesa. But their chairman only says 30 years, so there's a bit of a disparity there. Their track record isn't that clever. Clocanog Forest saw 7 of the 27 gearboxes fail within 15 months. So that's all that lorries, the moving the gearboxes and service work, it's not a one-off deal. That disturbance will happen over and over again because eventually they're going to need new blades. They're going to need new generators, new gearboxes. So, it's not a one-time deal. My last slide on this subject, aviation. Now, we all live underneath the RAF, God bless them. And I love to see the aircraft. This is by no way a complaint. But we see how low they fly, and we see where they fly. And this site, were it to go ahead, is directly underneath where those jets fly. So I got in touch with the people in the planning department at Ministry of Defence, and they tell me they are likely to oppose this development because it will impact their low-flying training area. If it restricts operations, they will oppose it. But I go one stage further than that. I fly a drone. I know the regulations. I know how this... how would they tell airmen that suddenly there's a tower there? It's a thing called NOTAMs. It's a notice to airmen. And sometimes, quite literally, they don't get the memo. So, beetling along, bad weather maybe, night time. Oh, that's not good. So, if there was to be an incident, who's at risk? Where would that aircraft come down? On us, not on RWE. So, I'll leave you with that thought for now. Okay. Thank you.